The wind howled through Pinewood Estates, whipping snow into my face as I pushed my daughter Lily's wheelchair through 6 inches of fresh powder. Lily, my 12-year-old with muscular dystrophy, shivered violently, her small hands clutching the blanket I'd wrapped around her. The blizzard had hit hard and fast, catching us off guard as we tried to make it the last 30 feet to our front door. Her lips were starting to turn blue, and I could feel the panic rising in my chest. We were so close yet so far because the only clear path home was blocked by none other than Margaret Hale, the iron-fisted president of our HOA. "Get that thing off my property." Margaret's voice sliced through the freezing air, sharp and venomous. She stormed down her driveway, her face twisted with fury, pointing at Lily's wheelchair like it was some kind of blight. The narrow strip of cleared concrete between our houses was her pride and joy, shoveled to perfection, and she guarded it like a dragon hoarding gold. "Please, Margaret," I begged, my breath puffing out in desperate clouds. "Lily's wheelchair can't move through this snow. She's freezing. We just need to get home." "Not my problem, Sarah," she snapped, planting herself squarely in the path. "This is my property, and I've told you before that wheelchair damages the pavement. Rules are rules." I glanced at Lily, her tiny frame shaking, her fingers numb from the cold. She couldn't feel her hands anymore, and her eyes were fluttering, struggling to stay open. The temperature was plummeting, and she'd been out here nearly an hour. "She's going into hypothermia," I pleaded, my voice cracking. "Just this once, let us through." Margaret crossed her arms, her lips curling into a cold smirk. "When you moved here, you signed the HOA agreement. No disruptions to shared spaces, no ruining the neighborhood's aesthetic. That includes dragging that thing where it doesn't belong." I stared at her, disbelief warring with rage. Lily's condition made her vulnerable to cold, and I could see her slipping away. "People like you," Margaret went on, oblivious to my daughter's fading consciousness, "are why property values drop. First that hideous ramp you built, now this. What's next?" Something inside me broke. 3 months of her harassment daily violation notices, snide comments about Lily's disability, fines for our unsightly ramp crashed over me like a tidal wave. But it was the sight of Lily's pale face, her breath shallow, that pushed me past reason. "Move," I said, my voice low and dangerous. "Now, or I will make you." Margaret's smirk widened. "Is that a threat? Another violation for your file." A few neighbors had gathered, watching from their porches, but no one dared intervene. Margaret had ruled Pinewood for years, and everyone feared her wrath. "She needs help," Mrs. Thompson, an elderly widow across the street, called out, her voice trembling but firm. "Mind your own business, Ellen," Margaret shot back. "This is HOA business." I looked at Lily, her eyes half closed, her lips a terrifying shade of purple. No rule, no pathway, no HOA was worth my daughter's life. "Call 911, I told a young man nearby, shoving my phone into his hands. Then I turned to Margaret. Last chance. She didn't budge, so I did what any mother would do. I scooped Lily out of her wheelchair, her frail body light against my chest, and charged forward. Margaret tried to block me, but the fire in my eyes must have warned her. She stepped aside at the last second, sputtering about fines and lawsuits as I stumbled through the snow to our door. Inside, I wrapped Lily in blankets, cranked the heat, and held her close as she drifted in and out of consciousness. Her fingers were white, her breathing shallow. When the paramedics arrived, one pulled me aside. Her core temperature is dangerously low. Another half hour out there, and he didn't finish. He didn't need to. At the hospital, doctors confirmed moderate hypothermia and frostbite on Lily's fingers and toes. As she slept, hooked up to warming pads, I made calls. First to my cousin Laura, a local news reporter. Then to my old friend Rachel, a disability rights lawyer. I wasn't just angry I was done. By morning, Laura was at the hospital with a camera crew. Rachel filed emergency injunctions against Margaret and the HOA for violating the Americans with Disabilities Act and the Fair Housing Act. I posted online, sharing photos of Lily in her hospital bed, screenshots of the HOA's relentless violation notices, and the story of Margaret's cruelty. I tagged news outlets, advocacy groups, anyone who might listen. The response was a wildfire. By evening, the Justice for Lily was trending. Neighbors called, sharing their own horror stories. Margaret finding a family for their autistic son's therapy dog, forcing an elderly couple out over paint colors. The dam had broken. 3 days later, when Lily was strong enough to come home, we found our driveway cleared, a new wooden ramp beautifully crafted leading to our door. Neighbors had built temporary accessible paths across the streets. A note on our door announced an emergency HOA meeting that night. I was nervous, but half the neighborhood showed up to support us. At the packed community center, Margaret sat at the head table, her usual confidence faltering. The VYC president, Mr. Daniels, called for order. Due to recent events, he said, the board has voted to remove Margaret Hale as HOA president, effective immediately. The room erupted in cheers. Margaret's face burned red as she grabbed her purse, but Rachel stepped forward. Ms. Hale, you're being served, she said, handing over legal papers. You're sued for ADA violations, Fair Housing Act violations, and reckless endangerment of a minor. I stood, pushing Lily's wheelchair to the front. Her arms still bore bruises from IVs, her fingers bandaged. She was turning blue. I said, my voice breaking. The doctor said 30 more minutes, and she'd be gone. All because you wouldn't let a disabled girl use a clear path in a blizzard. The room went silent. Margaret looked for allies, but found none. Mr. Daniels continued. We've also uncovered financial irregularities. Overdue lot $200,000 in HOA funds are missing. An audit revealed Margaret had been embezzling, using fines to fund her home renovations and La VYSH trips. She stormed out, but the damage was done. That night, I was elected HOA president. My first act, accessible pathways for all and scrapping the absurd aesthetic rules. Our story went national. Rachel's lawsuit won a settlement, which I used to start a foundation for suburban accessibility. Laura's news piece won awards, sparking investigations nationwide. Margaret pleaded guilty to fraud, ordered to pay restitution. But the real VY Tory came 6 months later on a warm spring day. Lily wheeled herself down the street, laughing with neighborhood kids who'd adapted their games for her. Pinewood, once cold and rigid, was now a true community. As we sat on our porch that evening, Lily looked at me, her eyes bright. Mom, remember when you said bad things happen to good people? I nodded, brushing her hair. I think, she said, bad things happen so good people can find each other. I hugged her tight, marveling at her heart. To the moon and back, I whispered. And to the stars and beyond, she replied, smiling at the sky. The next winter, when snow fell, neighbors cleared every path before the first flake settled. The community that once shunned us now held us close, warmer than I'd ever dreamed. And that old HOA path, it's now Sophie's Way, named for my brave girl, with a small sign no one ever complained about. What do you think, did Margaret deserve her fate, or was she just enforcing the rules? Should HOAs have the power to control neighborhoods like this? Could you have stayed calm in Sarah's shoes, or would you have snapped sooner? Drop your thoughts below. Hit that like button if this story got your blood boiling, and subscribe for more stories of justice and heart.